Hi, welcome back to All About the Sound, making learning English easier with a 3P approach. We're going to continue with our focus on phonemes. Phonemes, again, are the sounds we're hearing. And before we move on to phonics, where we use what we're seeing and together with what we're hearing to form our understanding of English, we want to get back to the sounds to make sure we're clear on the sounds we're hearing. So we are in this presentation going to be articulating English consonant sounds clearly and correctly. Last PowerPoint presentation we covered the vowel sounds. Now we are going to cover the consonant sounds, and when we're finished that, we're going to try to put those sounds together in a little review exercise, both the vowel sounds and the consonant sounds. So let's go on. So once again, these are the phonemes used in the English language, and these are not necessarily the Canadian phonemes. I told you before that we may use a different variation of phonetic symbol, a different sound maybe, or a different use of a sound. But these are the most often ones you'll see in any of the English languages. So we know that the top 3 rows are our vowel sounds, and the lighter of the shading of the top 3 rows are our monophthongs, the one sound vowel sounds, and the darker shaded ones of those upper 3 rows are our diphthongs, our double sounding vowel sounds. The ones on the bottom, however, are our consonants. So we see 3 rows of consonants. And these are the sounds, right? So what I'm showing you here are the IPA phonetic notations for each of these sounds, the phonetic symbol for each of the sounds we'll hear, okay? Not the alphabet. So again, I want to make sure that we're not confusing the alphabet with the sounds we're hearing. So we have, on the first one, is a p, 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 as in, what do they give you here? I can't make out what they're giving, but I would say pop, pop, pop. The next one is a B sound, but it's not B. It doesn't sound like B. It's p, p, p. So we have p, p, and then we have p, p. See the distinction in those sounds? That's the B sound, and we'll see that in bed, bed. Then we have the T sound, T, as in time, or TED. T. Watch my mouth too as I say this, and maybe it'll make more sense later on. Then we have the T, 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 as in dad, D, T, D, D, dad. Then we have the Ch sound, Ch, as in church. We're hearing at the beginning of church and at the end of church. Then we have the Ch, 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 as in judge. Then we have the K, 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 as in koala bear. I know they have different words here, but I can't make them out. Then we have the G, 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 not the X. I'm adding it on to that. It's G, 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 go. Then we have the F, 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 5. We also have V, V, very. Next to that, we have think, think. Then we also have the. They're both very similar, aren't they? And actually, they were represented in the same grapheme, if we get back to our letters and phonics. Then we have s, 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 as in so, or 6. Then we have s, 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 as in Sue, or zebra. We have sh, 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 as in short, sh. We have casual, casual, or vision. The sh, sh sound, another variation of the sh sound. Then we have milk, milk, milk. It's like a moo without the M on the end. Milk. Okay. Then we had no. Then we have another that looks like the N, but it's got a little hook on it. And that's when we hear ing at the end of a word, like ng, thing, ring. We have the sound, hello. We have the live. We have the red. We have the window. Window. And we have the yes. So those are, again, the English phonemes that we're trying to recognize for first sounds here. Not the alphabet. They just simply represent the sounds we're hearing, okay? That's the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. So just a reminder, especially with the consonant sounds, we need to remember to stop and clip. We have a tendency to elongate our sounds, or, add the extra to them. So we're going to be very cautious of that, right? So we need to stop the sound before that gets added. We need to be mindful then of our sounds, what we're hearing and what we're saying. Then we need to stop the sound before that is added, and we call that clipping. And there's one way to work, for example, with the plosive P and the B and P, the first two consonants I showed you on the phonetic alphabet chart, and they are both called plosive stops. So we have the B and the P, 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 ball, P, P, pot. Okay, you can see the different sounds. But if you imagine blowing a feather off your lip, and you had a piece of paper in front of you, when you say the p, 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 as in pop, the paper should blow. In either way, we're going to let the feather's going to blow away. We're trying to blow it away, and we will. But when we say the ba, it's more like blowing down instead of up towards the paper. It's a p, 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 okay? And we just want to clip it before we have to say that because if I say to you, ba, I'm just going to add that and it's going to cause all kinds of problems, as we seen last time. And then it just tells you how to do that feather and piece of paper exercise. So remember then that there is a way to clip, and we need to be mindful and practice clipping those consonants before we add the So just to review again, there's the phonemes we need to watch so that we don't attach that to it, and we know to clip. Are, again, what I explained to you, the b, ball. We have a tendency to say b, okay, instead of just D, we can correctly pronounce it as da, instead of just t. T, we can correctly pronounce it as ta, instead of just saying t. P, we can correctly pronounce it as pa, instead of just saying p. M, incorrectly pronounce it as ma, instead of just saying It's like a moo without the oo on the end of it. S, incorrectly pronounced as s, instead of just s. L is incorrectly pronounced as la, when it's just Gotta really clip that off the end of that one. R is often incorrectly pronounced as ra, when it's just N is incorrectly pronounced as na, when it's just Y is often pronounced as ya instead of just yes. So the Y in yes, for example, we often say yeah, you add that extra. And that's what term yeah, I think, came from. Anyway, just some phonemes to watch. So I'm not sure how clear this is for you, but these are a list of the consonant sounds we'll be hearing. And you'll see that the description of them fall in 3 different columns. The first column is telling us whether or not the voice cords are the vocal cords are vibrating. And so if they are vibrating, they're voiced. If they don't vibrate, they're voiceless. Then the other one is telling us where in the mouth, they call it the point of articulation, where in the mouth is the sound happening, like between the tongue and the roof of the mouth and the lips and all that. And then the next column is telling us how it is happening, and there's the descriptors of how they're happening. So we're going to go on about that. I just want to show you that's what it would look like all together, and you'll see several different descriptors in the second and third column that we will talk about in detail today. So consonant sounds involve a different area, a different type of mouth movement, and a different process of using the vocal cords than the vowel sounds do. Consonant sounds are all about constriction, how much the airway is constricted. And this will allow for the amount and quality of air, will determine, I guess, the amount and quality of air that can get through to help us make those sounds. It involves three things, like I said before. First of all, it involves where the constriction or the so-called airflow obstruction is, and we call that the place of articulation. If you see POA, it simply means place of articulation. Where in the mouth or vocal cords or vocal muscle group is the sound occurring? It's also determined by how the sound is made, how narrow the constriction is. Is air flowing through the nose? Is the tongue dropped down on one side? So how is that sound articulated or made? A consonant sound is also described by whether or not it is voiced or voiceless. And that means, are the vocal cords around, or the glottis, the vocal cords, are they vibrating or not vibrating to make this sound? If they are vibrating, then it is voiced. If they are not vibrating, it is voiceless. So these phonemes, these consonant phonemes or consonant sounds, are classified in three ways. They're classified in where the sound takes place, which we call the point of articulation, how the sound is made, and also if they are voiced or voiceless. So we see on this chart, they're just talking about the place and the how of articulation. And they're marking the certain vowel sounds or consonant sounds we're hearing according to where they're taking place, the place of articulation, or the method of articulation, which would be the how of articulation. And you will see down the first column, we see method of articulation, and we see something called stop, and the stop can be voiceless or voiced. We see fricative, and again we're going to ask, is it voiceless or voiced? We see something called affricate. Is that voiceless or voiced? We see nasal. Is that voiced? Liquid. Is that voiced? And I'm trying to think what that word is. Glide. Is that voiced? And then when we go across, we see, and this is hard to read, I know it's not very clear, bilabial, labial dental, dental, alveolar, I can't even make palatal, I'm assuming, because we're talking about the palate, and velar or glottal. So those are the things we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail, but this is a chart to place those consonant sounds according to where, or the point of articulation, where the sound is made, how the sound is made, the method of articulation, and whether or not they're voiced or voiceless. So let's look at the how of sound, or the manners of articulation first. So you see a stop sign, a nose, and a mouth there for a reason, to help you remember something called stops. Now stops, of course, is stop, right? Stop. The tongue tip is touching the alveolar ridge in this mode of articulation, meaning the alveolar ridge is that bump right behind your teeth. If you run your tongue on the back of your teeth, you'll find a ridge with a bumpy ridge, and that's your alveolar ridge. So if the tongue tip touches the alveolar ridge, we're going to completely obstruct the airflow in the mouth. It's not going to come out of the mouth. It may, however, come through the nose, and if it does, that's called a nasal stop or a nasal. And it's cut off through the mouth, but it can pass through the nose. And we hear this in the sound, sound. It's coming through the nose. Oral stops or plosives, however, are cut off through the mouth and the nose. They're not going through, it's just not coming through. And we hear that in the t and the d, t, d, t, d. Still talking about how consonant sounds are made, the mode of articulation. We're moving on to my funny pictures. Hope they make sense after you see this. We're going to move on to something called fricatives. And what word do you hear in fricative? I hear friction. So I'm always thinking about friction. Now the tongue tip doesn't quite touch that alveolar ridge back there, leaving a little bit of space between it and the tongue so that air can move through. But it's just a tiny bit of space that's going to make a little bit of turbulence or friction or a hissing noise as that air comes through. And we see that in the fox, fox. We see it in the violin, violin. We see it in a thing, the, sing, zebra, ship, and as in vision. So that is a fricative, okay? And that's why the snake is it, just to remind you that it's a sound or the hissing sound, or you're hearing a little bit of a hiss. Then we move on to the approximants. The approximants are much like the fricatives, but there is less constriction, less blockage of the airway than there is in the fricatives. We increased a little bit more space between that tongue and the alveolar ridge, okay? So that when the air goes through, we don't hear that hissing sound or that friction sound. And we see that in the W, the J, the R, and the L, okay, in those letters, and they're friction-free. Then we move on to the affricatives. The affricatives. Now, affricatives are a combination of two things. It starts with a stop, so we hear that thing that we've heard previously, and then the tongue slowly moves into a fricative. So we have the stop where there's no air coming through, and then all of a sudden, and it's usually a plosive stop, meaning that there's no nasal sound to it either, so it's just like the p sound, and then all of a sudden we have a fricative. We have that bit of friction coming through, and we see that in our digraphs, ch, ch, church, ch, 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 and the j sound, ch, ch, in judge, ch, ch, judge, ch, church. Okay, so we have two sounds, two movements of the mouth going on there. Very good. Then there's another question we need to ask. Is the air escaping around the sides of the tongue when I make this sound? So the manner of articulation could involve air escaping around the side of the tongue. And we call that laterals. Lateral, if you break the word down into its Latin word root, means side. So it's something to do with the side. So air is escaping from either side of the tongue. Tongue can drop down to one side. Air escapes around the side of the tongue. And we see that in sounds like leaf, leaf, leaf. Then we have central sounds. So central, of course, means in the middle. Anything that isn't lateral is central. Like all the other sounds in English tend to be central. There's no air escaping around. So we talked about the manners of articulation, which is the how, or the method of articulation, how that sound is made. We also need to know where it is made, and that's the point of articulation, or the place of articulation, the POA, where the constriction happens. And you'll see a list of several things. I'm just going to go over what the meaning of the word is so you understand what the word means. And so I have bilabial, meaning two lips. Bilabial, meaning two lips. Labiodental means lips and teeth. Dental refers to teeth. Alveolar refers to the alveolar ridge. Post-alveolar is behind the alveolar ridge. Retroflex means to go backwards, to curl the tongue towards the back. Palatal refers to the palate, the hard palate usually at the top of your mouth. Velar is the soft palate behind the hard palate. And glottal refers to the tongue. So just by looking at those words, you should have some idea how this will translate into the place of articulation or the point of articulation. So let's look at the first one. Bilabial. Bi is two, lab is lip. So we're talking about two lips. And you see that picture of the two lips touching? So we see right here that the two lips are touching. So let's look a little bit more into this. The lower, oh, my dog is barking in the background, but I'm going to keep going. The lower and upper lips approach or touch each other. So there may not actually be touching in some of these sounds, but they're moving towards each other. And we see this in the p and the p and the m and our bilateral stops, okay? So those are the ones. P, p, m. The lips are together in those sounds. You can try them for yourself. Now the diagram to the right shows the state of the vocal tract during a p, p, and m. And m would look, the p and the b. And m would look the same, but with the velum lower to let out through the nasal passages. So we get like a coming up through the nose in the m sound. The sound involves two constrictions of the vocal tract made at the same time. One of them is lip rounding. Ooh. See how my lips moved? Ooh. And then I have the lips closing into an approximate. Ooh. Ooh. Very good. Let's move on. And no, you don't have to remember or memorize all this stuff. It's just there to help you with your sounds. If you want to go back and understand the pronunciation of these sounds and see it visually, these pictures will be here for you to refer to. So the next one is the labiodental. So I'm talking about the lips and the teeth, okay? The lower lip will approach or touch the upper teeth, like that. And we see that in fox, violin. So these are called bilateral fricatives because I'm hearing that little bit of friction at the same time, am I not? And this picture over here shows the state of the vocal tract during the f and the v. Not to get too hung up on that, just showing it to you. So now we're moving on to dental, and I'm referring to the teeth when I say dental. So what's going on with the teeth in these sounds? The tip or the blade of the tongue approaches or touches the upper teeth. So we have it doesn't necessarily have to be touching, but it has to be approaching. It can be behind, or it can be like this. So we see this in the for thing and the. Okay, so the tongue is actually touching the upper teeth, and these are fricatives because I'm hearing that hissing sound. There are ways to form these sounds. The tongue tip can approach the back of the upper teeth, but not press against them so hard that the airflow is completely blocked. Or the blade of the tongue can touch the bottom of the upper teeth with the tongue tip protruding between the teeth, as we've seen with thing and the, right? We're still leaving enough space for a little bit of a turbulent airstream, so we're hearing that hissing sound, okay? And these two are often called interdental because they are actually going through the teeth. And that's the typical interdental you'll see in that picture for th and the. Next, we have an alveolar, and I'm referring to the alveolar ridge behind the teeth, that bumpy ridge that is behind the teeth. What's happening there? The tongue tip, and sometimes the tongue blade, but mostly the tongue tip, approaches or touches, so it doesn't necessarily have to touch, but in a lot of cases it does, the alveolar ridge, that ridge immediately behind the upper teeth. And we see that in our stops. Some of our stops like t and t, 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 and are formed by completely blocking the airflow at this place of articulation. So we have no airflow in the mouth when this happens. The fricatives, however, s and ch, are also at this place of articulation. And they're fricative because you can hear that s hissing sound. And then the lateral approximant, where the air is coming out of the side of the tongue, in l. So we have that same tongue movement for all of those sounds. And the diagram shows the state of the vocal tract during plosive t, 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 and d. T, 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 t. So the next area we're going to look at is the post-alveolar, which is immediately behind the alveolar ridge. Now the constriction is made there by either the tongue tip or the tongue blade touching that area and blocking the airflow so nothing else can get through. The fricatives, sh and sh, as in vision, are made at that point of area, or that place of articulation or point of articulation, as are the affricatives, ch, as in church, and ch, as in judge. This diagram shows the state of the vocal tract during the first half, the stop half, because remember these affricatives have two parts to them, ch and ch. So this is the first part of it. That's where you see the mouth. And again, the mouth will change for the second part of that sound. And the next one is the retroflex. It's the rolling back of the tongue. Now, many people have a very hard time with this sound naturally, and I'm one of those people, so I may not be pronouncing it to the best of your comprehension. So you can always listen to, again, the IPA phoneme chart to get that sound better articulated. So let's look at retroflex. The tongue tip is curled backwards in the mouth, like that. And this phonetic symbol, by the way, with the upside down R, is actually the type of R we are saying most of the times in our English words. You can see it both ways, though, in phonetic notation. Sometimes the upside right R is used, but this is probably the more correct of the two sounds that we're hearing. And this is a retroflex approximant. The tongue tip is curled up toward the post-alveolar region, the area immediately behind the alveolar ridge. So we got a curling up of the tongue. And this diagram is showing a typical retroflex R. Now, retroflex is a subtype of post-alveolar, specifically the type of post-alveolars that you make by curling your tongue tip backwards. There's other ways to make that sound. Retroflexes are and other post-alveolar sounds so similar that you can usually use either one in English without any nasal effect on your accent. So you can use either one or the other one. Some Canadians don't use a retroflex R, but rather a bunched R, sort of like a tongue blade. So you're using your tongue to go back with an even wider opening. Okay, so there's different ways of saying that sound. But the correct way is actually the R with the tip curled backwards. And others may use a curled up tongue tip rather than their tongue blades in making ch and ch. So just again, that sound, it depends on the natural movement of the tongue. And some people, like I said, have a hard time with that sound, and I'm being one of them. Now we're going to look at two other points of articulation, the palatal and the velar. Palatal, referring to the palate. The body of the tongue approaches or touches the hard palate, and we see that in y as in yes, is the palatal approximant. The tongue body approaches the hard palate, but closely enough to create turbulence in the airstream. So it's not actually close, touching, but leaving a little bit of airstream. In the velar, the body of the tongue approaches or touches the soft palate or velum, which is behind the hard palate. And we have that in k, k, ng. Our stops made at this point of entry. The X sound made at the end of the German name Bach or the Scottish word lock is the voiceless fricative made at the velar POA, and I don't even know what that means. I copied that and I don't know what that means, so that's bad on me. The diagram shows a typical k or j sound, okay? G sound, k or g, k. And I'm making this, hear me making that sound on the end of that? K, k, k. I'm gonna pull back. K, k, k. Go. Though we're exactly on the velum, the tongue body widths will vary a lot depending on the surrounding vowels. And a lot of these depend on the vowel sound that's coming next, because there are going to be a bunch of sounds and they will kind of, balance each other out to some degree. Then we have the glottal. So we have the glottis is the opening between the vocal cords. And this opening is narrow enough to create some turbulence in the airflow past the vocal cords. For this reason, is often classified as a glottal fricative. So we've talked about point of articulation and manner of articulation, and the other way we describe the consonant, how we make our consonant sounds, is whether or not they're voiced or voiceless. Are those consonants voiced? Are we vibrating? Voice feel the movement of vocal cords. So if you put your hand over your neck right here and say certain consonants and you feel a vibration in your hand, then we know it's voiced. If we do not feel that, it is voiceless. So there's a picture. Sounds which are made with vocal fold vibrations are said to be voiced. Sounds made with without vocal fold vibration are said to be voiceless. There are several pairs of sounds in English which differ only in their voicing. So we can put these consonant sounds into pairs and say they sound so much alike, but one is voiced and one is voiceless, okay? They have the same point of articulation, they have the same manner or method of articulation, but one is voiced or one is voiceless. When I say thigh, that's in thigh, that is different than the thigh. One is voiceless, one is voiceless. Put your hand over your throat and try it. Say thigh, thigh, thigh. Are you feeling anything? Thigh, thigh. Now put it over there and say thigh, thigh. Right? Should be able to tell which one is voiceless and which one is voiced. So let's look at our consonant pairs to see which ones, how they go together, one being voiced, one being voiceless. Voiceless on the first column, voiceless on the second. And if we look at the first column, the first sound we see is p, p, as in pop. And I hear that p before, in the beginning of pop and at the end of pop. If I put my hand over my vocal cords here, I'm not going to feel that vibration. Pop, pop. But if I go to its pair, b, 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 I feel a vibration. Box, cab, p, p, p. Try t, t, tot, t, t, tot. I feel no vibration. D, d, d. I feel the vibration in dad, dad. The k for cot and puck. We hear it at the beginning, kt. You hear it at the end, puck. So I don't feel that vibration. But if I go to the k, k, and go, I feel it. Big. At the end, I feel it. Let's look at the f, f, fox, off, there's no vibration. Van, of, I'm feeling it. Then when we go to thing, that in thing, no vibration. If I take that sound and make it voiced, however, I will feel the vibration. The. In sing and cats, no vibration. The in zebra, vibration. The sh in ship, no vibration. The sh in vision, vibration. The ch in church, at the beginning of church and at the end of church, no vibration. The j in judge, vibration. Okay. So some consonants will remain unpaired, and the most famous one that remains unpaired is the H, okay? Now, that is voiceless and has no voiced counterpart to it, okay? So it just stays by itself. The other unpaired English consonants are all voiced. So we have several paired consonants and we have some that are not paired. The only unpaired one that is voiced is the sound. The others are not voiced. Or all voiced, sorry. We got the r, we got l, we got u, we got ch. Oh, sorry, I want to say J for that. E, as in yes. Okay, very good. Wow, we've covered a lot of phonemes, and it can get very confusing and overwhelming, and I do not want you to fret about this. This is just a helpful and important review to show you how important it is to get those sounds down pat before we move on to the next component of this learning English that is called phonics, where we start visualizing the sounds. If we just recognize the sounds, there's less confusion when it comes to phonics, okay? So that's why I want to take you back and do this little bit review on the sounds. Do not fret over all the theories, all the points of articulation, or the manner of articulation unless you want to, unless you find it helps to know where to put your tongue and mouth. You will be using speech parts as you learn English, depending on what alphabet you came from. It might be a little easier if you're learning English, say, from French or Spanish, simply because we have the same alphabet. And even German, it's a lot easier to learn English from German because we have a lot of the same sounds, and we have a lot of connection there. But if you're learning, say, from Arabic or from many of the Indian dialects, you will find it maybe challenge, or the Chinese, Cantonese or Mandarin, you may find it challenging to get those sounds correct because you're using muscles that you may not have used to create the sounds, the phonemes that you were using in your own language. It will take time to get those lips, teeth, tongue, palate, jaw, and vocal cords all working in coordination to articulate these English phonemes correctly. So please be easy on yourself and keep practicing. The more you practice, the more you use these muscles, the better you'll be with them. So keep that in mind. Practice, practice, practice any chance you get. Not only practice speaking and articulating the sounds, listening for the sounds. And you'll be shocked to find that many of the English speakers you're listening to are not pronouncing those phonemes correctly. Remember to watch for those common mistakes of adding extra sounds to our phonemes, as we discussed at the beginning of this PowerPoint. So don't add that and you will hear many English speakers adding that Just know that there's no we don't want the extra phoneme, we don't want the extra syllable in many of those words. So let's review hearing and distinguishing those phonemes that we're hearing, okay? So what I want you to do for this exercise is listen. Do not write anything down. Do not worry about thinking about the letters of the alphabet or even the phonetic notations for these words. I just want you to hear the word, and then if I asked you to repeat the word, to repeat it with the changes that I'm asking you to make. So listen, 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 and really try to hear those sounds, okay? So we're going to start with, what 3 phonemes are you hearing in cat? Cat. 3 phonemes. What 3 phonemes are you hearing in cat? I'm going to go quite quickly because I want these to become automatic to you. And if you don't get them right away, that's perfectly okay. You can come and do this again. 3 phonemes in cat. We're hearing k, a, t, k. I see I added the automatically. It's not. It's k, k, a, t, k, a, t. So that's what we're hearing. K, k, a, t. If I remove the k from k, a, t, what are you left with? So let's remove the k, and what have you got left? Take away the k from cat. What have you got left? And you should say at, at. If I remove the t from cat, what are you left with? If I remove the t from cat, what are you left with? Take away the t. You're left with k, a, k, k. The k and the a. Where the t was, put a p. What do you hear now? Where the t was, put a p. What do you hear now? K-ap, 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 cap, cap. Where the a was, put a. What do you hear now? Where the a was, put a. What do you hear now? Up, up, cup, cup. Where the k is, put a p. What does this give you? Where the k is, take it away and put a p. What does this give you? It gives you p, up, p, up, pup, pup. Now, to the p, up, and, okay, add p and e to the p, up, add p and e to the ending. Okay, so we got p, up, p, e, p, up, p, e. What's that give you? Puppy, puppy. Now, add another word behind p, 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 e. We're going to add p, s, p, s, p, s, pus, pus. What have we got? So the answer to the final question on the other side was puppy paws. Puppy paws. Okay, let's go on. Listen closely. Say the following compound words out loud to yourself without writing anything down, and remove or change what I ask you to. And do this all orally without writing anything down. Listen closely, say the following words, and remove or change what I ask you to. Say sunset, sunset, and remove sun. Sunset, remove sun. What are you left with? Set, 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 set. Say bumblebee and remove the bee. Say bumblebee and remove the bee. Bumble, bumble. Very good. Now, this is not a compound word, but we're going to say guide, 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 and change the g to r, g to r. And that should give you ride, ride, at, ride. Say bread, bread, bread. Now say it without the r. Say bread without the r, r. And we will have bed, bed. Say crew, crew, crew. Now change the r to l, r to l. Clue, clue. So let's just try a little bit more before we finish off this presentation. Listen to the word, repeat and change as directed. Listen to the word, repeat it out loud, and change as directed. Say man, man, man. Then change the a to e. Change the a to e. M, a, n, m, n, man. Say foam, as in ocean foam or sea foam. Then change the m to n. M to n. Foam to phone. Phone. I'll call you on the phone. Say ripped, ripped, ripped. Then change the p to s, p to s. What have you got? Ripped to wrist, wrist. And this is my wrist, wrist. Say went, went. Then remove the t. Went, remove the t. What have we got? Went without the t is when. When. When will I see you again? Say ghost, ghost. Then remove the s. Ghost without the s is goat, goat. You can get milk from a goat. I think that's the last one, is it? Nope. Say craft. I am making a craft with paper mache. Craft. Instead of f, say k. Instead of f, say k. Craft without f and with k is cracked, cracked. I cracked the plate, cracked. Well, wonderful job on that review. And I know it's challenging to use those muscles you're not used to using the point of articulation and the manner of articulation necessary to pronounce some of those phonemes. But you are doing great. Just keep practicing, practicing, and practicing. Keep referring to your IPA, your International Phonetic Alphabet, for those sounds and those phonetic notations. And soon we'll be going on to phonics, where we're going to put the graphemes into play. And when we visualize our words, we'll always have, at this point, hopefully, the sound behind them. And it is actually all about the sound. So have fun articulating and keep articulating and practicing. And please be easy on yourself. This is a challenging process to learn another language, and you are doing great. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. And remember, it's all about the sound.